I get it. That knitting is my first love and will always be here. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Wool Needles Hands Creative Podcast. My name is Taylor and I will be your host. I have a lot to share with you today. It has been a long time since the last time I filmed for the channel. And so I have an awful lot that I could potentially share with you, but I'm narrowing it down to the things that I have been working on recently. And over time, I will pull in some of the other things that I've been working on in that 11-month gap since the last time that I filmed. So today I am drinking my favorite. If you have been watching this podcast, since it's been a podcast, which goes way back to 2017, you'll know that my favorite tea to drink is Bigelow Orange and Spice, and that's what I have in my mug today. My mug is actually this. We got this. It's a Small World mug, so it came from Disneyland. We went to Disneyland. My husband Brandon, I have a 4-year-old son Ronan, and a 7-year-old son Angus. And we took our first family trip to Disneyland in June, and it was wonderful. I feel like we got there, it was hot in certain parts of the day, but I feel like we got there before it was really uncomfortable, so we got lucky because in the evenings it was fantastic. We loved it. We had such a great time, and I have to buy a coffee mug whenever I go someplace special, and so this was my coffee mug from Disneyland. And just having this right now, it's already giving me... I'm getting the itch to go back. We all want to go back so badly. We adopted a dog. That is Pepper. She is fantastic. Such a good dog. So we're really happy to have Pepper in the family. So I am so happy to have my tea, my cute little mug to share with you guys, and to get started sharing some of the things that I have been up to. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, before I get into the knitting, because I know that a lot of you are here for that, and I get it, I'm going to just say right now that I started this knitting project a couple weeks ago, it was 3 weeks ago, and that's the first knitting project I've done since January, maybe. I lost my mojo, and I'm okay with that because in that time away from knitting, I started kind of dabbling in all kinds of other things, primarily painting, and it opened up this whole world of creative inspiration that I'm so thankful to have found. And I want to share some of that with you guys today. Now, don't panic. I know why you're here. I know that this podcast has always been a fiber podcast, knitting primarily. That's not going anywhere. I have thought about it in the past, like, oh, let's just see if we can introduce some new stuff. It doesn't have to always be knitting. And I know that that's true, but I get it. That knitting is my first love and will always be here. So don't you worry. But there are going to be things that I bring in that are unrelated to knitting because I feel like, and I've learned this over the last several months, that in order to be kind of, not good at something, but in order to really appreciate a craft, it's important to experience all kinds of other crafts, all types of other forms of artistic expression, creative expression, to be kind of a jack of all trades and not just somebody who hyper-focuses on one thing. But I'm learning that allowing myself to kind of be like a little bumblebee around all kinds of little activities and crafts and creative outlets and things like that, it's really helped me to kind of figure out the type of creative that I am. So I encourage you to try that as well. If there's something out there, some other creative outlet that you've been wanting to try, but you haven't because you feel like you can't take away from this other thing that you're doing and you need to be able to spend time to get all your knitting projects done, I challenge you or encourage you to set it down and try this other thing and to become kind of a Jack or Jane of all trades, because I really do think that helps to fuel our creative fire and to understand the type of person that we are when it comes to being creative. So that's my intention moving forward with this podcast, is to kind of emphasize the Jack Jane of all trades thing. Okay, so that being said, some of the things I've been getting up to, like I said, are sketching, painting. I actually started a visual arts Instagram account. It's just a separate Instagram account where I exclusively share painting, sketching, that kind of thing. And I will link to that down below. It is Art by Taylor Earl. It's not as active of an Instagram account, but it's a place where I can share this kind of stuff exclusively. All this stuff is linked down below, but definitely check it out if you're interested. You can see some of the things that I've been getting up to. But quick and dirty, I've been getting into watercolor. So the first place that I went with the painting thing was watercolor. I started watching Jenna Rainey on YouTube. She's a really lovely watercolorist, and kind of getting into that. And then I discovered gouache. Gouache is another form of watercolor. It's an opaque watercolor. If you're familiar with watercolor, you know that it's very transparent, very watery and beautiful. Gouache is in the same family, but it is opaque, so you don't have that transparency. It's very easy to layer color, light over dark, dark over light. It's beautiful, so I got into that. So this is my work table. I've been collecting all the little pieces that I've been working on in this basket. I started gouache with a painting of our dog. So this is Pepper. And it's so funny because I love like looking at this and seeing kind of where I've come since then. So I did this of Pepper, and then right after I did this one that I'm gonna pop up on the screen of Ziggy, which is my brother and sister-in-law's dog. And I love that one. I feel like that one just looks so good, like dog portraits. I just love it. Some of the things I've been practicing are trees. I love painting trees. This little practice page is based on a tutorial by Paul Clark. I'm gonna link to his YouTube channel down below. Even if you're not interested in watercolor, he's like the Bob Ross of watercolor. Like if you need something soothing and relaxing, but also just charming and happy to watch, Paul Clark is amazing. He's like the Mac Daddy of like watercolor in my opinion. So I was following a tutorial of his to create watercolor trees. So that's an example of that. That's this also. I just come in here. Sometimes it's supposed to be reflective. I come in here and I sit down and I'll put on like a Paul Clark video or a Jenna Rainey video and go to town. I was practicing skies. I didn't finish this one. And I had a jar of Pride of Barbados on my table over here, and so I did like a little still life of that. You can see a lot of this stuff over on that Art by Taylor Earl Instagram account. But that's kind of how I started. That was like my jumping off point into watercolor. And then I was like, well, how can I tie this creative expression into like my yarn business or not my yarn business, but my yarn life, my knitting life. And so this is really early, I took one of the photos from my Fiber for the People Instagram account and I decided to try gouache and recreate that. So if you know Fiber for the People on Instagram, I use my hands in my shots a lot. And so this is an example of that. So this is gouache. If I get up close, you can see it's very matte and opaque. It's really fun to paint with gouache to show shadow. Really, stark shadows, things like that. So that was my first foray, or one of my first forays into gouache. This was me practicing watercolor flowers with Jenna Rainey on YouTube. Again, I'll link to her below. Okay, so those are some just examples of things that I have been getting up to with watercolor. I have some leaves. Look at those, how pretty. This is also Jenna Rainey based on her tutorial. I have a bunch of little reels over on that Instagram account showing me making those, which are fun if you're into that kind of thing. I even tried my hand at a self-portrait. Okay, that's enough of that. Moving on. I actually have a better self-portrait. I intentionally don't want to show you that for very long. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. And then we move on. Oh, and then I felt like my confidence was building in not only my watercolor skills, but my sketching skills. I did this is supposed to be my 4-year-old son, Ronan. I know it looks like he's 12, but this is based on a photo. I'll pop it up so you can see it. But I was really happy with the way that this came out because it's ink, it's pen and wash. So it's ink and then washed with watercolor. So yeah, some of the little things that I have with the kids. I've been doing lots of things inspired by my boys. I have another little sketchbook where I was doing this is Ronan playing with some trains. the boys at hockey or skating practice. I've really gone down the watercolor rabbit hole big time, and I love it. I love all of the things that I've learned. I love all the materials that I've acquired, all the little tools. I'm sort of crazy about paintbrushes and all of that. I've had paintbrushes, so I added to my collection, but just getting all of the lovely paintbrushes to do all the different things. There's paintbrushes in here that are watercolor. These are more for like oil paint and acrylic. But that's another thing too, is just gathering all the tools and becoming really obsessed with that. I have my sketchbook that I also use to keep track of just sketching. I've been wanting to learn or teach myself how to sketch better. So this is the sketchbook. It's just kind of like a faux leather front. I love the gold spiral binding. And I started by, this sounds like really, I don't know what this sounds like actually, but I started copying like Leonardo da Vinci sketches only because they are obviously sketched, right? So it's easy to look at them. You can see what the quill or whatever the implement he was using, you can see the marks and all of that. So it kind of makes it easier to understand how to sketch, I guess. And so I was doing some of these sketches, and I kept working through this, trying to teach myself how to sketch portraits and faces. I really love this one. Really delicate and soft. This is actually based, I want to say, on a Michelangelo sketch. Same concept though, like you can really see the markings on the paper. A lot of these things are unfinished, which is fine. Just kind of practicing like shading instead of drawing actual lines for different parts, like just focusing on shading the values. Oh, this was just like a fun sketch that I did. And this is based on a photo from a Pom Pom Quarterly magazine. The sweater is like, I don't know what the pattern name is, but that's what that's based on. This one is just like different positions of a person sitting. I don't know what it is about me, but I really love to like sketch feet. This is a hand, kind of foreshortened. This is just, I love body, like postures, I guess. I think that's really cool to capture. This one kind of blew my mind. Sometimes I'll do something and I'm just like, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that again. Yeah, she's pretty cool. There's some things about her that are kind of strange, like what's going on with her neck right here. But I mean, yeah, she's amazing. Okay, so she's really light. I used a pretty hard pencil, but I also wanted her to be kind of light. And I wanted to turn her into a transfer so that I could use some gouache paint with her. So she's really pretty. I love that, like, I don't know what you call that expression. She's just very austere. I don't even know if that's the right word, but I love her. And so I did a transfer of her onto this watercolor sketch pad that I have, and I turned her into a gouache portrait, and that's her here. And I really love her. She's amazing. I mean, just look at those eyes, look at that face. So I'm super happy with that. That's gouache, also that opaque watercolor I was talking about. I did Rachel Weisz. I want to say this is a scene from that movie Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law. Pretty excited about that because I feel like I actually captured somewhat of a likeness. I did this of the Amelie, a scene from Amelie. And then I went over it with watercolor and kind of regretted it because it's just not the right paper for it. And it looks okay, but the first sketch I did prior to doing the watercolor, I felt was a lot of fun and I would have rather just kept it. And then this is another one of her. And that is the most recent one I've done. And I just finished. Well, it's I guess you can't say it's finished, but this is where I'm gonna leave it. So that is just a little bit of what I've been doing in this rabbit hole of visual arts, I guess you could say. If you're interested in getting into this, painting, sketching, whatever, get a sketchbook to start with, something with really good heavy paper. This sketchbook I really love. I'll link to it down below in the description box because the paper, though it's not meant for watercolor, the pages where I have done watercolor and heavier mediums than, you know, pencils, it's okay. It holds up. That one here, So this one, the paper rippled a little bit. You can see that on the back side. Yeah, don't look, that didn't come out very good. But you can kind of see how the paper is rippling a little bit. But honestly, if it's just for the purpose of sketching and playing around with the paint, don't sweat it. It's fun to look at. You can definitely do gouache on this paper. It's just regular watercolor. You have to use a little bit more water. So it's gonna ripple a little bit, but if you're okay with that, which you totally should be, get yourself a sketchbook and just start sketching, you know, coloring, whatever. Get yourself a sketchbook, get a cute little pencil bag. I have this one that I picked up on Amazon. I love it because it's small, but it holds a ton because I feel like it opens a lot. So you can see it like really opens up a lot. And I put like drawing pencils in here, pencil sharpener. I have this really awesome eraser that I've been using because it's really slender. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this, but it's called the Slendy eraser. It's super skinny. You can see how skinny that is. It gets into all those really small spaces when you're sketching. You could just get like a Pentel eraser like this. Get yourself a sketchbook and some pencils, and it doesn't matter if you consider yourself to be a good artist or a good, you know, a sketcher or drawer or whatever, illustrator. That doesn't even matter. Just have something to start to sketch anything, regardless of your skill. You just sketch it and you keep a journal of it. And it's really pretty captivating at how that kind of builds creativity, builds inspiration, and you watch your skills increase all by themselves over time pretty quickly. So I definitely recommend it. Definitely check out Art by Taylor Earl if you want to see a little bit more about what I've been up to, some of the tools I've acquired over time. I'll be sharing some of those here too, like I said, down the road, but that's kind of where I wanted to go with that for now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to what I have over here in my project bag. Okay, this is not a new pattern. You have seen me make one of these, I think 4 times now. And it's just, I had the yarn and I needed something to jump back in to knitting, something that I knew would be not necessarily easy, even though I feel like this is relatively simple, but something that I knew would be cozy and mellow and something I've done before, something familiar. Comfort knitting, if you will. So I cast it on to another Felix pullover. And this is by, oh my goodness, I never forget her name. Why am I first? She's Savory Knitting on Instagram, but why on earth would I forget her actual name? Amy Christophers, thank you. Okay. So yeah, this is the Felix pullover by Amy Christophers. I have knit this before. I think this is my 4th time. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is my 4th time. I am knitting this. Here it is so far. How lovely. It's a beautiful kind of earthy green brown. I have a hard time saying this is brown. You're gonna get lots of brown vibes from this because the mohair that I'm using has some really lovely browns in there. But the color, this colorway, this is Fiber for the People yarn. This is the Yucca colorway. This is a skein of mohair in the Yucca colorway, but there was something happened here, so it's a misfit. In the past, I've had a difficult time getting Yucca to show up on mohair the same way that it does on regular merino yarn. I don't know what it is about the mohair, but it just comes out more brown. There's more red that shows through. But I'm knitting this Felix in these 2 colors. So this is Yucca, like I sell it in the shop, Fiber for the People. This is organic merino worsted. And then this is the kid mohair silk in Yucca. But this is not, this is closer to what I have. This is my pine cone color, or closer to my pine cone colorway. So that's what's giving my sweater a lot more of those like brown vibes. But that is what I'm using to knit this. And oops, I just separated for the sleeves last night. And here we are. Yeah, so I'm gonna love this. I love the neckline of this. I love the little eyelets that go down the raglans here. My eyelets, I feel like every time I've made this sweater, Actually, I take that back because the most recent time I made this, before I did not include the eyelets, but on the times that I have made this sweater and included the eyelets, they're always off somewhere. And I don't even go back to fix it because at that point I'm just over it and I don't think it's super noticeable. So I just leave it. So I think that's happening here. Yeah, it's like, I'm not even going to show you because it doesn't matter. But I love this. So this is worsted yarn with a mohair, held together with mohair to give it that air and weight, which is called for in the pattern. I love the way it feels. It's so soft and so luxurious. And this color, I just feel like it's a great fall color, but it's also just a go with everything color. Super neutral, but also it has a nice warmth to it that gives it a little something extra. You can get up there, you can see that pretty halo and that beautiful stitch definition. Yeah. So that is on my needles. I have other things on my needles. There are projects over there and I'm just pointing in the direction of my project bags that you have seen before, and I will be, cycling them through when I get to them. But this is kind of what's going right now, what's bringing me joy and making me feel cozy. And this is kind of my rain dance for fall. So I'm hoping that if I work on this enough, the temperatures will drop a little faster than they are and ring in fall. So that is my Felix pullover and I'm loving it so far. I definitely recommend, if you have yet to knit a sweater, or if you just love knitting simple sweaters that don't require a lot of thought or intricate details, a staple piece, if you will, definitely check out the Felix pullover by Amy Christophers. She also has a cardigan version, which is lovely as well. But that is in my project bag. And before I wrap it up for today, I wanted to share with you guys what I have been reading lately. Okay, this is a book that I started about 1.5 years ago and I never finished. I'm not really exactly sure why I put it down because I enjoy it. But yeah, I started it a little while ago and then just never finished it. And I don't know what it is that we read to our boys the Magic Treehouse series. And there is a kind of a spin-off series of the original Magic Treehouse series called, it's called Merlin Missions. So these are juvenile fiction books. I mean, little kids. And the Merlin Missions is kind of a spin-off of the original Magic Treehouse series. And one of the books, in all of these particular books, they go back in time in this Magic Treehouse. And it sounds like it sounds, but it's really wonderful. And in this one that I'm reading to them right now, they go back to New York City in the 30s, early 30s. And as I was reading the story to them, it's cold and snowy and they're in Central Park and it's the 30s and whatnot. And it caused me to remember this book. So this is called Time and Again. It's by Jack Finney. It was written in 1970. And it is a time travel novel, but kind of, as far as I've gotten into it, it's time travel, so you can call that science fiction, but that's probably where up to the point that I'm at, the science fiction, futuristic stuff kind of stops, because it is taking place in 1970, and it's, there's not a lot of this reliance on time. There's no time machine in this. It's more of kind of a study on time travel via hypnosis kind of thing. It's really hard to explain. If you're familiar with the Christopher Reeves movie Somewhere in Time, it is very similar to that. That's a lovely movie, by the way. Very sad, but very good. That's kind of the same theme going on so far. I am how far? It's on my Goodreads right now, so if you follow me on Goodreads, it's up there right now. I'll link to my Goodreads down below. I'm on page 118, and there are 398 pages. But I'm really enjoying it. I started it a few days ago. I'm also reading a Hearthstone, which is a C.J. Sansom book of a series of other books that I've been reading that are based in King Henry VIII. England, Tudor England. I love those. I'm reading that one right now, but I stopped for a little bit because I just had this compulsion to pick this up and read it after I was reading that to my kids. But yeah, I'm really loving this, and it takes place in New York, and the character goes from New York in 1970 and he travels back to 1882. And the way that he goes about traveling back and the thoughts that he's having, and it's first person, it's written in the first person, but all of his kind of thoughts and the thought process and all of that is really interesting. Not boring. It doesn't lag. It has a good pace for where I'm at right now in terms of what I'm interested in reading at the moment. So loving that. So if you love time travel, and you like to think of time travel in a way that is kind of dreamy, but yet tangible, if that makes any sense, something that you could imagine working. If you like, oh, if time travel were a thing, this would be ideal for how it would work instead of sending a person through a black hole or whatever. This is the way to go, because it does have kind of that like real whimsical is not the right word, but kind of a dreamy way of thinking about time travel. And I definitely recommend the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeves, because it's Christopher Reeves and Jane Seymour, and it's a lovely movie, and it has a beautiful soundtrack, but it's also very similar to this. So that is what I've been reading, what I've been knitting, other creative things I have been getting up to, and can I just say it feels so good to be here with you sharing it all, because it has been a long time coming, let me tell you. But how appropriate to return in the fall, when it's just that time to start doing all of those cozy things. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. This has been wonderful. If you had a nice time or enjoyed anything that you see here, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel more than you know, and definitely subscribe if you'd like to see more. If you would like to be notified and make sure that you don't miss any upcoming videos, hit the little bell icon and my video will pop up anytime that you access YouTube as soon as it's made available. Happy knitting, happy making, happy whatever it is that you're doing. And until next time, take care, be well, and I will see you soon. Bye.